Gotta go.
You've got to go. We're running late.
Oh, stop, Alice, stop.
Hi, no, I'm waiting Hi everyone. We're just waiting for people to come through before we kick off. And just a note, Dan is coming. He's just having some issues, but
So he
that's
says.
fine. Yeah, hopefully he will pop up any minute now. Welcome to our third Thursday webinar. We didn't plan it this way, but we're really pleased. We've had a really good month in November for chatting with you guys about all things commissioning with commissioners. And yeah, so have a good November for us. But today we're doing something a little different. So I am joined by Nate Wiseman from Redeeming Features and eventually Dan Korn from Hearst Networks EMEA to talk about how Redeeming Features had their show Original Gangsters with Sean Bean commissioned, all due to a broadcast intelligence one-to-one pitch meeting.
Indeed.
So while we wait for Dan, we are going to kick off with the trailer. So let me make sure this is all good. There we go. Okay.
When we think of gangsters, what's the name we think of first? Almost everybody has a story about them. Who were they?
Gang members and organised gangsters are not meant to be admired.
On the streets, violence is everything.
The Cray twins were almost telling the police, come and get me.
We're all right.
Basically a functioning psychopath.
He would just have this great smile, but it could turn.
She was the original gangster.
Who's next?
Don't worry. There'll be no more of this trouble.
Absolute nonsense.
And with that, all hell broke loose.
These guys were in constant battle. What they did was completely over the top.
We all know that's not true, don't we? Who were the original gangsters?
There. So perfect timing.
Brilliant time. I'd watch that. That looks good. Yeah.
Yeah, it looks amazing. So yeah, so now we know kind of what we're talking about. So I want to start right at the beginning of everything. So Nate, you had was it an initial meeting with Diana in a
It
one-to-one
was.
broadcast intelligence session, and
It was
clearly
with
that
the
was
brilliant guy. Yeah.
successful.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It was
clearly that
me.
went well.
Yeah, it did. It was really good. I think for us, it was me, Victoria, my partner and producer on this, and also my wife, and Di. And it was a great kind of, these things are really helpful to us. They're like speed dating. Do you know what I mean? So we just get a very quick, like, okay, what do you need? We're digging into something. And I think Di was sort of going, okay, you guys have got some interesting ideas and you know some stuff that you could do with us. That sounds great. And then it suddenly went into a next meeting with Dan. But it was really good. It was good. It's cool.
And could you like talk to us about what you did to prep for that meeting and kind of were you coming with ideas or was it more just as a general chat introduction?
I think in that specific instance, we came with a couple of ideas. I always like to just have like three ideas that we can just sort of off the cuff, even if just sort of like to see if that's the kind of stuff they want to do. But really, you're just listening in because there's a lot of, broadcast is brilliant. The things that go out there, the statements of what everyone needs, but actually to dig into what the reality is. Everyone wants the next great show that's appealing to a big audience and you know what I mean, original but familiar and all that kind of stuff. So to actually dig into the kind of what's lacking on the channel, what do you need, where do you see us making that kind of the like projects for you. So yeah, I think we had a few ideas, but we're quite nimble in coming up with ideas anyway. We can sort of pivot and sort of think through things quite quickly.
Mm.
Yeah.
And bringing you in now, Dan, from your point of view, if you're kind of having maybe a 15-minute with an indie or they're coming in to pitch you, what are you looking for out of that maybe initial first meeting?
I think, and good afternoon, everyone. I hope you can you hear me okay? Because I was
Yep, you are perfect.
brilliant. Thank you so. Nobody's ever said that about me, but thank you. Yes, I think what you're looking for in that first meeting is that the producer has an understanding of the brand of our channel, in this case, Sky History, and that they have that sort of spark of creative originality, and they have a particular story to tell and a way of telling it. So I think that's the thing to, but I think it is initially about how far they understand as a brand what we're trying to do, because I think that there are ideas which inevitably are sort of quite generic in their form and almost could fit on any broadcaster, and of course that's fine. But I think to really sort of feel that you've got there's a synergy there or something you want to exploit and explore, it needs to be, the producer needs to come with a sort of, this is why this would work for you, and this is why we'd like it to be on Sky History as opposed to, say, BBC or Channel 4 or ITV or Channel 5 indeed. So yeah, I think that's what you're looking for initially.
Mm. And in terms of original Gangsters, so how, from both of you, how did that come about? What was the pitch like? What was the idea initially?
Nate, did you want to
I'm trying to
chime in
remember
first?
it now. I think we wanted to do something with Sean for a long time, and I think we were talking about different projects that we could do with you, Dan, and saying, and Dan is a big aficionado on gangsters and criminals, I have to say. Like, we were talking about different people, and he was like, what about, for example, Billy Hill? Like, we didn't actually know who Billy Hill was. We were like, he's kind of on the periphery, and we're actually, no, Dan's like, no, this guy, he would make a great episode. So I think it's about listening and just sort of molding an idea together, really. We knew we want to do something with Sean. I'm fascinated by these characters anyway, and the sort of the genre itself, and to have a deep dive and understand the myths versus the reality is really interesting for me. And I think for an audience as well, like, everyone sort of knows anecdotally stories about the craze or whatever, but actually try and understand who they were. And what I wanted an audience to come away from with each episode is that I can kind of know exactly what that person's like, or I really got a deeper understanding of them. So yeah, I think, as Dan said, understanding what really knowing the channel as much as you can, but also the commissioners know their channels better than anyone else. So it's really listening to what they know that their audiences want. Because I watched a lot of Sky History and going in thinking, oh, maybe it's this kind of stuff, but very soon you realize, actually, if we did it slightly differently, that's much more what Sky History audiences want. And it's just a conversation, isn't it, really, Dan? I think, like, trying to.
I think that's right. I mean, I think that there was a show that had preceded Gangsters that Redeeming Feature had done. Features had done with Century Films, Brian Hill, which was The Guilty Innocent, which was presented by Christopher Eccleston, and that was a super show in many ways. It was a very good experience, and examining the Hanratty case and the George Davis case and these sort of miscarriages of justice or alleged miscarriages of justice, and that had worked well. I think and it looked very premium for us. And I think that going back in, it sort of naturally led to a sort of further conversation. And Nate is right. I mean, I made a lot of films about gangland, but I also knew that our audience, we had a series on the mafia previously, and we did Ross Kemp Mafia in Britain, which was very successful for us. And so this was a subject area, a sort of a milieu that we thought would work. And Nate and the team came up with some really interesting ways of realizing it visually, and putting it together with Sean. We worked with Sean back in 2015 on a doc about Waterloo, with his connection to Sharp and all the rest of it, and he did this doc for us, and so we thought that he was the kind of talent that would work. And talent is very important. The sort of talent that we have on Sky History, we're very lucky. We've just had Alice Roberts and Rylan Clark. We've had Bradley Walsh earlier this year, and Ross, who I mentioned, Ross Kemp. And so, having someone like Sean, who is sort of known for his gangster persona, in fact, was on a series in the BBC, This City Is Ours, wasn't he, as a sort of gangster, in this subject area, which is such rich history and about which there's so many sort of so much mythology that you can get into and sort of explore the truth behind. It sort of felt like a really a terrific series, and so it's proved. It's a really super series. Redeeming Features have done a fabulous job with it.
And Nate, were you pitching with Sean already attached then?
Could you try again?
I can't remember now. I think we knew Sean through Molly, and we were discussing other projects. I think we there was when we finally went to Dan and said we really think it should be original Gangsters with Sean Bean. Yeah, we had him attached then. We knew that he wanted to do something. He's really into history and stuff. So I think it was actually trying to find something that he wants to talk about and get excited about as well, which because you can just put names on things, but it has to feel like they're embedded into it and they want to do it. They're excited by the subject matter as much as we are as the filmmakers. And he is, thank God. Do you know what I mean? And he's brilliant. He's so like into it. It's unreal. He's like texting me and Molly like ideas for other episodes and things like that. So it's really great when everyone's engaged in it.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And how much did this show kind of develop between the two of you? How much is, the original pitch different from what we saw in the trailer and what we can see on screen?
Go on, Nate, you go.
I was going to say I don't know. They're not a great deal. There's some with all these things they develop and they hopefully improve and grow. I think one of the aspects that when we were at Rough Cut, Dan, when we were discussing it, it lacked a kind of psychological element of it. And that's when I think we decided, it would be really good to get someone from that world to come in and almost do a psychiatric evaluation of these individuals, these characters. And I think that, that's added a whole other layer to the show. And I think we talked about it initially, but we didn't really go into it. We were too busy sort of getting the experts and people who in some cases knew them or were related to them. But as soon as and then Dan was like, I think it's missing that element. I think it was you that called that out, Dan, wasn't it? Like later on, we were chatting about it.
I'll certainly take it. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, fine. You have it. Okay.
Yeah, thanks very much. Yeah. It was a very collaborative process. I think the interesting thing was starting from the pretext of almost like sort of, Diary of a CEO is sort of what made these particular people sort of ascend above the rest of their peer group. Was it sheer charisma? Was it brutality? Was it sort of a head for figures? What is it that kind of gave them the edge? And in someone like Billy Hill's case, enabled him, and this is very rare amongst sort of gangster fraternity, to sort of retire quite peacefully. I think Nate, Nateem, and I should also mention Deep Segal from Motion, who was great on a lot of this as well, is sort of working out how we can frame it slightly differently and not. Of course, there's a moral imperative to sort of which actually some of the interviewees do extremely well is clearly, the living off immoral earnings and menacing people and intimidation and all the rest of it, but actually, trying to also get underneath that and understand why this group were just so much better at it than a lot of their contemporaries.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm just going to focus on you, Nate, for a bit. Because I think it's always helpful for maybe smaller indies or those that haven't maybe had their first commission yet and are just kind of starting to do pitch meetings maybe by themselves and they haven't been necessarily working in that development space. How much work do you do before something like a BI one-to-one meeting? Are you, I assume you're using broadcast intelligence to prep, but how much depth are you going into for that?
Quite a lot. I think we've got loads of shows at different stages of development, and we are constantly refining and sometimes something starts somewhere else. You think actually that's much better for this channel. If we know we've got pitch meetings coming up with specific commissioners, we will look at all of the things that they've commissioned. We will look at the channel, look at what's gone out in broadcast, and really try and do as much of a deep dive as you can. Your natural due diligence on it to go, okay, what's missing? What do we think that's missing here? And where can we create something that I think would excite that audience? And it sounds really simple, but it's quite I drive the entire team mad for like days putting things on boards and writing, going, that wouldn't work for them. This might work. And what about this? And I've got this idea. And they're like, oh God, no, that's rubbish. And then we come back round and then, you know what I mean? So it's a process, that's the game, right? It's just the world we're in, trying to just make great TV.
And what's something that you would say would be like maybe a top tip or something that you, when you first, started redeeming features and started pitching that you maybe didn't expect that now you're kind of like, oh yeah, of course that would happen.
Um, I think the good thing is about the one-to-ones is that it's very quick. So you don't have time to sort of I've got proper ADHD and loads of projects on the go. So and we're doing scripted and and factual and we're sort of mixing it around. So to have like a consolidated, like, okay, you've got 15 minutes essentially, and the first 5 minutes is just like, here's who we are, here's what we've done. And then the next is, what do you guys need? Can you sort of debrief us a little bit more than what's just gone out on broadcast? And then it's that final bit of like, okay, and all the time you're thinking, oh, okay, I've had calls with people going in with like 5 shows, and then the first 2 minutes and they said, actually, we don't want that. You're like, okay, that's just killed 3 of those. So now we've got like two down to two. Do you know what I mean? So then and you have to be able to, like, I suppose, just it is you're trying to not just second guess, but like try and understand where the gaps are in the schedule that they've created already, and fill them with your own stuff that you want to make as well. I think that's also the thing I would say is really important is you have to make shows that you really want to see. Otherwise, you're stuck for a year making something that's like, oof, you know what I mean? And I think there's an element like, look, we're a small indie, and I get offered to direct stuff here and there, but it's like if it doesn't really excite me or somewhere I want to live with that for a year, then it's not, we just go, no, it's someone else's story to tell. You know what I mean? So that's, I suppose, the big take home, trying to just you should tell the stories that you want to tell, but make sure that an audience wants to. Yeah.
Yeah, makes complete sense. It's great advice.
It makes sense. I don't know. Maybe I don't.
And Dan, on the reverse of that, like, what are you expecting when someone like, and maybe what are your top tips when someone's coming in to pitch something or just meet you as well?
Well, I think that most of the people I'm fortunate enough to meet are great at sort of coming in and showing that they know and they understand the channel's requirements and what the brand represents. And as Nate says, sort of coming with 2 or 3 strong ideas that they think will work for us. I think that either for Sky History or Crime Investigation, and I think that the top tip, which is not it's not really a top tip, but I think always what sort of commissioners are looking for, as I say, that slightly different way of looking at things, of looking at the world, I think it's, of course, as Nate says, you want to, telling the stories you're interested in, of course, that's sort of a given really that you're interested in, but having an eye to what's going on in the world around us, as well as the sort of history. So to give an example, as I'm not explaining it terribly well, but when we had Why Does Everyone Hate the English with Al Murray around the time of Brexit, it was a sort of a brilliant way of reflecting current attitudes and exploring, taking a sort of a present day issue on everyone's mind and looking into the deep history. It's that sort of salience almost with what's going on in today's world that I think makes some of these shows much more relevant than if you just sort of a classic history narrative. And that's what I think we're always trying to do. I mean, we're sort of, it's in very sort of highfalutin terms, we talk about sharing stories that matter. And, there's a joy in telling these stories, but they need to have something sort of that really is reflective, I think, of attitudes today, as well as going back into the past. Another example is Bradley Walsh that we had on Egypt's Cosmic Code, which Studio Crook did a super job on. And that again, because Bradley is fantastic talent, and because he sort of bought into some of these Hancockian theories about, ancient astronauts and all the rest of it. It was fabulous. It was a sort of fabulous pretext to go and see the incredible artifacts that the ancient Egyptians produced. So it's the contemporary relevance and resonance, I think, is important for us.
And so kind of moving on to like a little bit more nitty gritty, when you're in these like early pitch meetings, maybe development, how much of it is creative versus logistics or funding?
Is that for me or Nate?
Anyone, sorry, jump
Okay, I
in.
mean, the funding thing is a constant issue. I mean, it's an issue throughout the television industry, and it's a challenge for everybody. Is sort of working out, how can we find the money? How can we put together a coalition of the willing? How can we sort of? I mean, this is why I mentioned Motion earlier, which is why that relationship is so important, as is our relationship with Krempelwood, because they are effectively, we can put together deals with them through airtime barter deals and things like that, which enable us to fund a lot of these great shows. So that's sort of the the funding discussion is sort of contiguous with the creative. You almost can't have
Mm.
one without the other. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, and certainly it's usually the first thing that Nate mentions when he comes in the room is how much money have you got, and can I have it all, please? And why not? That's what the producers need the cash. So yeah, it happens simultaneously, and I think the minute an idea, there's interest in an idea, that conversation happens at the same.
Mm.
Yeah. I think also understanding, like, we come from a sort of indie film background, so it is great with, trying to get as much bang for your buck and production value on screen, and trying to work out how you can deliver something that does not look like it was made for that much money. It looks like it's really premium, which I think we succeeded in this series.
I do,
Actually.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Ocean were really great, and also Getty were really great, really helpful. Simon was there. Just trying to use archive in a different way, and just making sure. I really hate bad recon if it looks, like, just cheese. So for us to try and, we had some really great cinematographers, and just trying to lean into how you get just great production values, I think, is the way. But everyone is, budgets are really tough across the board.
I think they are, and I think leaning into that, leaning into the tech as well, leaning into AI and things like that has made a real difference. And we've just had a couple of, we had a super show from Spirit Studios on crime and investigation about Ed Gein, where they used AI to brilliant effect. And similarly with First Look and Killer Kings that we had in June on Sky History. I think that, again, as Nate says, making the budget stretch as far as possible, seeing as much of that money on screen in as inventive a way as possible is really important.
Yeah.
Mm. And also, just a reminder for anyone watching, we do have Q&A enabled, so please do ask your questions, because we'll get round to them in a couple of minutes. Nate, I wanted to ask you about your development process. Are you looking, and bring it back to broadcast intelligence a little bit, are you looking at the commissioner briefs on broadcast intelligence when you're developing ideas, or are you finding your ideas and then finding the commissioner? How does that kind of work for you?
It's a mix, to be fair. I mean, we kind of try to have our ear to the ground for all the commissioners of what they're looking for, and then it's about trying to find shows that we know that we can deliver, and going, okay, how do, like, if that talent works for that channel, maybe this for that. It's a constant process. But we do use broadcast a lot. We listen, and we're constantly digging into it. I do think it comes down ultimately to relationships, though. You've got to be able to be trusted that you are going to be able to deliver. We get sent a lot of projects to co-pro and things like that, but I think we know our own capabilities, and we're very secure in what we can do. So it's just, it's about having a relationship that's built on trust of, like, look, we know we can deliver 6 to whatever it is, hours of, premium TV at that budget level or this budget level. Did that answer your question? I feel like I was just waffling then, but you know what I mean? Like,
No, yeah.
Okay.
No, it made complete sense. Like, you're doing a bit of both, and
a bit of both. That's what I should have just said. A bit of both. That's it. We just do a bit of both.
Short and sweet.
Yeah.
And it's similar, and you might also say, Dan, a bit of both, and then that just summarizes us up nicely. How often are you commissioning kind of something that you've briefed out and said, we want this, versus something that has maybe developed organically through a relationship with a producer, or something that's come in just left of field?
Yeah, a bit of both. No, I think I think that we are sort of, again, we assume that people, there is a brief, people ask for it and they get it, but obviously the best brief is is watching the channel and understanding, some of the things that we've done, and all the rest of it. We It's rare that there'll be a sort of a particular hole or something that will be casting about, such as the volume of great ideas and things like that. We'll have our eye and we'll be talking to people almost 3 or 4 shows ahead, if you see what I mean, so that we know what we want when we have the money to fund them. So it's sort of, through our regular dialogue with producers, we have our eyes on the ideas that we're looking for, rather than sending out a kind of a template of this is our brief and what have you got sort of thing. It's much more of a regular, continuous dialogue.
Yeah, amazing. We haven't had any questions through, so I'm hoping that means that we've been very thorough throughout this conversation.
Congratulations.
Yeah, so we've demystified the pitching development process, and but yeah,
Absolutely. All I would say is that that a lot of people out there have a sort of burning desire and a sort of a vision of what they want to do, and I genuinely believe, as tough as the market is now, if you sort of hold on to that and you are as committed as, say, Nate is to some of his projects and a lot of other great producers, they will get made. I mean, what's uncertain at the moment is when, bearing in mind the sort of sporadic nature of funding. But it's we've just the chap called Alex Beskerby came to us with this brilliant idea about Last Burma Star that he's been trying to make, and we in the end it got made. But having persisting and patience is really what gets things through in the end.
Yeah, the goodwill out.
Yeah, we've had some quick last minute questions come in. They knew we were wrapping up, and they were like, quick, got to get stuff in. A question from Alison, which asks, are most of your series presenter led, Dan?
Yes, they are. Most of them are presenter led, not all, but yeah, the majority. The reason being that talent is, for us, it's proxy marketing. If you have a big talent, you get the column inches, you get the press and PR. If they've got a social media following, then they sort of, they can leverage that for you. So yes, absolutely it is. Yeah.
We've got an interesting one from John, which says, today's broadcast reports a number of industry luminaries saying the UK's commissioning system is not fit for purpose. I would actually love to know, like, if you guys, I mean, you might not have an opinion yet, you might have not thought about this, but how do you think we can make the commissioning system better?
Commissioning, I mean, it's really all about how much money there is available in this. I mean, it's not that in my view, for what it's worth, it's not that the commissioning system is not fit for purpose. It's that at the moment we're in a very, everyone's experiencing very tough market conditions. So there isn't the availability of budget that everyone would like, that we would like, that producers would like. But I don't think it, and I haven't read the article, so I can't comment on what these various luminaries have said. But in my view, it's fit for purpose, but it is just incredibly tough out there.
Nate, do you have any thoughts? Or
I need to read the article now. I'm keen to understand.
I'll put you both on the spot.
There can be, I will say this, there can be some snobbery out there across the industry in general. If you don't, people, there is a bit of a, you need to break down some of the barriers of people getting good ideas to people. I think I would say that could definitely be improved, but it's it's a tough industry. It is tough, and I think it's even tougher now with the economic challenges that we're all facing. So yeah, but stick at it. Like the goodwill out. I do think that as well.
Yeah, you got to love it, and that's why we're all here. Exactly. And just to wrap us up, we have had one question which I should have asked myself really, which is, Dan, how would you like to be pitched?
It's always great to have some tape if it's possible, to always, again, it's something that Redeeming Features are very good at, of sort of providing a bit of tape to go along with a very compelling pitch document. So yeah, but if that's not possible, I mean, in my own career, I obviously started with everything on paper, not on vellum. I'm not that old, but and so as long as it's a sort of, blisteringly good narrative with some really good talent thoughts, that'll do nicely.
Hmm. And Nate, we've had a few, I guess, independent producers asking if you'd be open to working with them or hearing their ideas. So
Well, yeah, send them in. Yeah, all
there
day
we
long.
go. Could be a successful
It's a,
session for a lot of people, hopefully.
I'm always open. It's a collaborative sport, right? I have to say as well that Dan is a very good commissioner in that he gives great notes and is very straightforward to deal with. Not all of the commissioners are cut from the same cloth. I have to say that. I'm not going to
Such
name
a
names.
sweetie. Come
No,
on
I'm just being
in.
honest.
Let's
It's
do some
true.
more. That's
It's just
very nice. It's very
true.
kind, very generous, very generous. Well, right back at you. It was a great collaboration, and we've been thrilled to have it on Sky History. It's been a fantastic series for us.
Good. Oh, thanks.
Mate, I'm glad to hear that as well. So fingers crossed for my broadcast exclusive of season 2.
Oh, yeah, that'd be good. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. Again, work for everyone on this call.
exactly.
But thank you so much for joining us, and I'm hoping everyone found that very interesting to have, track the journey of initial meeting to getting an idea on screen. So thank you both so much for joining me, and
Thank you.
thanks everyone else for watching.
Thanks, Alice. Thanks, Nate. Good to see
Cheers.
everybody. Take care.
Bye,
Bye now.
guys.
Bye.